Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Catherine and this is Raspberry Reads. If you are a subscriber, then welcome back. I hope you have been enjoying my content and thank you so much for supporting my channel. And if you are new here, then again, hi, my name is Catherine. I started this channel back in February, mainly because I just love reading and I wanted to share my love of reading with everybody else on the internet. And I read generally historical fiction, sci-fi, dystopian, literary fiction, and a bit of non-fiction, mainly nature or environmental topics. But yeah, I basically read lots of different things, and I hope you enjoy my channel. And if you do, then please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, like, it all helps. But yeah, with all of that being said, I just thought I would cover, again, a slightly unusual topic today and one that I haven't done before. And it's all the books that I have not finished. So this is my DNF, did not finish, review for 2024. There's a slight possibility that there might be a couple of more books for the remainder of December, but unlikely. But yeah, so I'm going to stop waffling now and just walk you through all of the books that I decided to put down and I do not expect to pick back up again, and why that is, and why, even though I didn't like them, you might. And that's just to say that these books are ones where I did give it a good try. So there are lots of books that I kind of sample, so I might listen to or read maybe, I don't know, 10% through the book and decide this is just not for me, or the format isn't right for me, or I'm just not in the mood for it. And that doesn't mean that I'll never pick up that book again. It's not the right time. And yeah, but these ones are ones that I did give a really good go with and made it usually sort of 30 or 40% through the book and then decide it's not for me. So yeah, I'm not going to waffle anymore. So my DNF books for 2024, and we're starting with, I think this was Waterstone's top book of 2024, which is difference of opinion. And this is Butter by Asako Yuzuki. And so this book is set in Japan, written by a Japanese author, and was translated, and apologies, I don't have the translator with me, but I'll try and include it in the description. And this is literary fiction, also crime thriller. And it's basically about a woman who forms a relationship with another woman accused of murder, and their conversations in prison, but it's very much food-based. So I would say going into this that if you are not a foodie, you might not appreciate this book, and that was my case. I like food, but the amount of detail about the food lost my attention. So the book is fairly slow paced. I would say I made it 150 pages into an ebook version, and it was a really good premise, and I liked that it was set focused on female protagonists, but their endless conversations about food and the amount of very descriptive writing was just too much, too wordy, and possibly this could be a translation issue. So much of the book, my sense anyways, this is just my opinion, but much of the book seems to me that you need to have a good understanding of Japanese culture in order to appreciate the nuances, and I don't. So I think maybe some of the wording and the overly descriptiveness of the food and, you know, just generally what's going on might just be a cultural difference, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not the right fit book for me. The one thing I didn't like, and again, this could be a cultural thing, but nonetheless, I disagree with it, is I didn't like the amount of fat shaming, emphasis on bodies and appearance, and many of the views of women I did not appreciate reading. So for all of those reasons, I DNF'd Butter by Asako Yuzuki. Have you read Butter? And if so, Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you DNF it? Let me know in the comments below. The second book I gave up on is The Way Home, Tales from a Life Without Technology by Mark Boyle. And I was listening to this as an audiobook narrated by the author. And this is a memoir that is, as the title suggests, all about Mark Boyle's sort of experimental adventure living a sustainable or subsistence style lifestyle without technology for a year. And I gave up at 45% in this book. And I think, again, this might be a case of I'm just not the right audience for it. I went into it thinking that it was going to be more so about self-sufficiency, sustainability, a sort of social commentary on how we can approach our lives more sustainably, almost in sort of like a homestead vibe. But this was a very, I felt, self-serving book. Mark Boyle, talked a lot about drinking and visiting the pub and football, and it was less about his adventures in building his homestead and more about his sort of opinions on things. I did find it a little bit hypocritical, the way that he was defining technology and his task to not use technology for a full year. So for example, he decided to not have a vehicle, which is entirely fair enough, but then relied on other people to drive him around. He would try and make a lot of food at home, but then would go to the pub. He didn't use the phone, but then relied on the postal system, which uses a lot of technology in order to communicate with people. So yeah, those are just some examples where I was sort of like, that doesn't seem to me to be the right way of being sustainable. And yes, I should have said he's basically trying to spend a year without money, and yet relying on systems that operate using money. In terms of just the format, so there was nothing wrong with the narration, but there are epigraphs, so like descriptions before the start of, or excerpts I should say, before the start of each chapter. And I found those really distracting because the tone of voice didn't change, and I got really confused about whether or not it was the book being narrated or these epigraphs. So that's just one sort of formatting point. I would say that if you really enjoyed Henry Thoreau's Wohlleben, which is a classic, then you might enjoy this. I have read Wohlleben and I really did not like it. I found it incredibly self-serving, again, sort of man in the woods complaining about everything. And I know I'm probably a minority of people who feel that way. So I will leave it up to you that for me, I did not enjoy The Way Home, but you might, and it's still worth trying. If you have read The Way Home by Mark Boyle, what did you think about it? Let me know. Okay, up next we have another sort of nature-based book, and that is The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. And I talked about this book on my channel back in the springtime when I was reading it, and I really wanted to enjoy it. I loved the idea of it. It was such a fascinating topic, and yet I still gave up at 40%. And I just can't help but feel that the author didn't do this topic justice, in the sense that I felt that he was mixing scientific facts with his own opinion. I was reading this book as an ebook, and yeah, as I said, gave up at 40%. And I was thinking about it that if it had been an audiobook, this would have been even harder, that I couldn't figure out in the writing style whether or not he was saying something that was fact or it was just his opinion, because he didn't use footnotes in an appropriate way, let's say. They were sometimes there and sometimes not, which was a bit confusing. I think it would have been better if he had focused more on his own experience. I found his story compelling, and much like Robert McFarlane's Underland, which I talk about all the time on my channel, that did a really good job of telling the author's story and yet conveying important facts about nature while you're doing it. And this one seemed too much let me give you all these facts and try and insert my story into it to have it flow, and it just didn't. And yeah, so I should say that my partner, Lucy, she had just finished Finding the Mother Tree by Suzanne Simard, and I've heard wonderful things about that, and Lucy enjoyed it as well. And I think that that book might be a better choice for me. I think I might prefer the narrator and the perspective, or might connect with it a bit more. So yeah, it's not to say that The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben is bad. It certainly isn't. And as I said, I really wanted to like it. I just didn't gel with it, but it might appeal to a lot of people, and it, you know, is popular for a reason. So yeah, I DNF'd that, but please let me know your thoughts if you've read it below. Okay, we've got another science book. I didn't have much luck with science books this year, but that's all right. And this is Notes from Deep Time by Helen Gordon. And I listened to this book on audio. And again, it was a case of I found it too self-centered. So I should say this book is about understanding sort of chronological time, but from a geological perspective. So like sort of epochs and different eras, but looking at the geology of those environments. And I do find that very interesting, but I think that you would probably get on better with this book if you didn't know a lot about geology. So if you were going in as a beginner, and you just wanted one person's perspective on the basics, then it might be interesting for you. I found it just a little bit too conversational and, as I said, just a little bit too beginner because I have a background in geology. I've taken quite a few sort of earth science courses. And it was also more of a human-focused approach, so sort of like a meditation on deep time. And there were lots of like humanities-focused ideas, and I found those a bit distracting where I wanted to get to more of just the science bits. So yeah, I think that book is just a case of I'm not the right audience for it. Really interesting premise, but just not the right fit for me. Again, if you've read Notes from Deep Time, I would love to hear your thoughts. All right, moving along, the remainder of the books I have to share, I actually don't have a lot of notes on, and that's because I have sort of a succinct idea of why I didn't like them. So the next one is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley, and I tried this book. I didn't get very far in. I think I was listening to it on audiobook, and the reason why I just couldn't with it is that it involves pets and death, and nope, I can't deal with a book about a dog dying. So yeah, I really, from what I had read or listened to, I did enjoy Stephen Rowley's writing. I would like to get to The Guncle, and then if I enjoy that, The Guncle Abroad, because I do find his writing quite charming. I liked the idea of Lily and the Octopus, but I just couldn't for emotional reasons. But yeah, as always, if you read it and enjoyed it, I'd love to hear what you liked about it in the comments. Okay, another one that I hope is going to start a conversation, and I'd really like it to, is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. So this, I think, has been made into a TV series, and it's very popular. I started listening to it on audiobook, actually at Christmas time last year, so this is just over a year old. And I listened to it while I was doing a jigsaw puzzle because I'm an old lady and I just couldn't get into it. I think I listened to about 50% of it and I couldn't connect with the characters. I couldn't connect with the storyline. I think the point that I gave up was perhaps where there was a turning point in the story. But even still, that sort of contemporary narrative just wasn't the vibe for me. And I should say that even though I'm Canadian, I don't really care about hockey. So a whole book about hockey, even though it wasn't set in Canada, I was willing to give it a good go. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. So yeah, as always, if you read Beartown and either liked it or didn't like it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, here's another one that is an exception to what I said at the beginning, and it's Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. I started listening to this on audiobook and then I really struggled to get into it. I think from what I remember, some of the characters or even the narrative connects to one of her other books called The Glass Hotel, which I read last year and had kind of mixed feelings about it. And then at the time, when I heard those characters coming back, I was like, ugh, I don't really want to get into that story again. So I gave up on it a bit too soon. And I'm still really hesitant to go back to it because even though I like Emily St. John Mandel's writing, some of her books are a miss for me. I think I might try this one again in print, but at the same time, I'm on the fence as to whether or not I want to DNF it permanently. So I guess my question to you all is, if you've read Sea of Tranquility, do you think it's worth persevering with? And if you do think so, then I will add it to my TBR for 2025. Next up, we have The Fell by Sarah Moss. And just a short note about this is that I'm sure it's a good book, but because it was set in the pandemic, I am not interested. I didn't know that at the time. I tend to not read the blurbs about books too much, especially if I'm borrowing them on the Libby app. I just sort of try it out. And yeah, this one, I think I probably listened to only about a quarter of the way through. And because it was focused about emotions and during the pandemic, I kind of want to just forget that time period, if I'm honest. So yeah, that one was a no for me. But yeah, did you like it? If you read it, let me know. Okay, we've got two more to go. I'm looking at my notebook if you're wondering why I'm looking down. So the next one is Lean Fall Stan by John McGregor. And this one was a memoir. Yeah, I'm sure it's a memoir set in the Antarctic, and sort of things go awry on the expedition. Yeah, it's saying something that I can't remember too much about it, other than I found it really depressing and I just couldn't get into it as an audiobook. I found it really hard to follow. And the idea behind it was intriguing. And I know that there was lots of hardship during the expedition where some of the people got lost, I think. But it just took so long to get into it and it was so like that it just wasn't the right time for me, and I don't think I'll go back to it. And the last book that I DNF'd, and this was back in February, was Till Death by Jennifer Armentrout. I think that's how you pronounce her name. And I know that this author has written other fantasy books, which are pretty popular from what I can gather. And I just found the writing and the narrative terrible in this book. Yeah, I think I listened to a third of it maybe, and the plot was fine. And I do think about it still because I kind of want to know what's happened, but it was just so poorly written that I couldn't do it. So I left it, and for that reason, I'm really reluctant to pick up anything else by Jennifer Armentrout. Yeah, so I guess if you enjoy that author, please persuade me otherwise. But otherwise, I think that she is not for me. But yeah, so those are all of the books that I gave a good go with in 2024 and just decided to part ways with them. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is because I am 100% sure that they might be a good fit for some of you, that they have a lot of great qualities about them. The authors did some fantastic writing and research, and so I don't want to just not talk about them. Yeah, so this is a sort of choose your own adventure or make up your own mind about them. And as such, they're kind of recommendations, and we can all sort of decide together. So yeah, that just leaves me to say that I hope you're all doing really well. I hope you are enjoying whatever it is that you're reading, and I will see you soon in a new video. Take care. Bye.